Hi, I'm Sandi D, Queen of Podcasts and the host of the All Things Relax with Sandi D podcast. And I'm here tonight with my partner and producer, G. Hey, G, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm good. So I thought it would be kind of funny since usually on the podcast, I'm interviewing creative and inspiring women, and which obviously you're not a woman. So,
Yes.
so I thought it would be kind of cool though to come on here and just kind of maybe do like a little mini interview and just let people get to know you a little bit better, to know the producer behind the scenes. And the funny thing is, what people don't realize is I'm an introvert who's usually always out kind of in front of the things, like behind the mic and out in front. But you're actually an extrovert, but you work behind the scenes.
Yes, it's kind of funny. It's kind of the yin and yang or yin and yang. I don't know which one we are.
Right.
But my background is I was a tour manager and live sound engineer for over 25 years, worked with many well-known artists, and I was always the one who was either behind the audience at the soundboard mixing the show, or when I was just tour managing on the side stage watching the show.
Right.
So even though I'm an extrovert and I love being out front, my entire career I've always been behind the scenes. So it's kind of funny because you're the introvert Virgo and you're out front. I'm the extrovert Gemini and I'm behind the scenes.
Nobody ever sees you. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So we talk a lot often about, especially me, like I'm encouraging introverts to like go out there and like step into their power, channel their inner rock star. And by the way, I kind of want people to hear from you because you've sort of witnessed, for lack of a better word, my transformation over like the past, it's been almost a year and a half now since we launched the podcast. Can you speak to like what you've seen? Because I mean, before we started the podcast, as some people may know, I've shared this a little bit with some people. I was terrified. Like you would not see me on video or talking behind a microphone. Can you share a little bit your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a funny thing about this whole introvert thing is that a lot of people may not realize that your favorite singers, your favorite actors, comedians, everyone who gets paid well to be out in the spotlight, in real life, they're really introvert, very private, and they're very intellectual. They're very like emotional, and never having talked into a mic before, right? I mean, I remember the first day that we're on season 2 now. It's been over a year coming up.
Yeah.
Pretty soon it'll be like a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
That it's been out. It can be very intimidating for people when anyone, especially when you're talking into a microphone for the first time. I think we can go through our entire life and not really hear what our voice sounds like, right? So I remember the first day when you sat down in front of the mic and heard yourself and you're like, that's what I sound like? And I'm like, yeah, that's what you sound like. Now, I mean, and we cover this in the course and we cover all that. There's ways to take the sound and shape it and add some plugins and compression EQ and make it sound a little different.
Right.
But really the meat of the voice, the tone of your voice is the same.
Right.
So it takes some time to get used to that. Right. So we started with a trailer and she's like, oh, I really sound like this. And then, doing the shows and doing the pre-interviews and recording everything. And one thing that I really found is that the more that you sat in front of the microphone and recorded and played it back, or heard the podcast or even video stuff, played it back and heard it, the more comfortable you became with your
how you sound. I have to be honest, like in the last, definitely since season 2, I see a real shift because, as some people may know, especially if you've been a guest on the show, generally I like to script things out and you don't have to necessarily stick to the script. But for me, I like it because you can anticipate what's going to be the next question and
have a structure.
Yeah. Now, of course, it's just kind of a guide. Like I don't say, oh, we have to absolutely stick only to this, because I'll, ad lib and stuff. But I'm finding since season 2, I am really a lot more comfortable with kind of deviating and going off script and asking more probing questions maybe, or just kind of taking things in a different direction when I feel called to do so. And I'm also finding in addition to the podcast, just for like going live and stuff, like now it's weird. Like it's just weird. It's like it's comfortable. I'm comfortable doing it. It's
And
so
this
strange.
this is what we mean when we're saying about step into your power and channel your inner rock star. And that's what I've seen as this transformation in you from before we did the trailer to now. It's like, I mean, now you're doing the VOs, you're like the voice, you're going on IG Live all the time.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning I was doing a lot of the VOs, and now you're doing all the VOs, and it's a skill that you learn, and the more you do it. But I got to tell them a funny story.
Yeah, sure.
The very first IG Live you did,
Yeah.
because, okay, everyone needs to understand, I come from the professional world, a background where if you do a TV interview, it's like a movie set
Right.
on set. You know, I mean, there's lights and there's camera and blocking and all this stuff, right? So when you did your very first Instagram, remember? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Seems like it was long ago. It was
Feels like a long time.
last
Yeah.
year sometime. I had the lights set up. We had scripts. I had like
Oh
plaque and
yeah.
things like we're
Downstairs, I
downstairs
was
in the
sitting in
living.
that chair and
This is
everything.
pre Joey, pre
Before having the puppy.
having a
Yeah.
puppy. We could never do anything downstairs now with lights and things with Joey around. He would want to be on
Yeah.
it. But here in the studio, in the home office studio, we can set this up. But I remember, like, yeah, we set up this whole thing and rehearsed it,
And you had to hold the pages for
and
me,
I was
right?
holding the pages, and it brought like flashbacks back to working with some of those artists. You know, when artists, especially when they're starting out, we do a lot of pre-production and rehearsal, right? But even when it comes down to doing interviews, we'll do a lot of interview prep.
Right.
Where we go over, okay, these are the questions they're going to ask, and so we have a script, and they're going to talk about the album and the single and why they wrote that song and what it was like working with the producer and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of interviews, I've been standing there. This was like, I don't know, years and years ago when I first started out, holding a piece of paper while they're doing the interview, and the journalist is like, is that the answers to the question? You know, so it was really funny. It was like, but yeah, that was a whole production to do that. And
now
I'm so proud of you. You nailed it. I was like, man,
Thanks.
that was great.
Yeah, now I don't even need a script. I just go
No
on
script,
there,
just
and
go
I'm like,
on there.
and I kind of figure, if I flop a little, I don't care. It's, I don't know. I take it seriously. That, don't get me wrong, but it's just like I'm over myself. Like it's like I've stepped into my power,
Yeah.
and like now I can like share what I'm thinking without overthinking it. I'm just kind of doing it. Just do it like Nike says.
And that's something that I need to work on from my background of everything has been perfect. Like, if you're doing a live TV show or something, we've blocked it, we've rehearsed it, even if it wasn't at the station, we've rehearsed it in a production, a pre-production, a warehouse or like a sound stage or something, a rehearsal room. We've rehearsed it 10, 20, 100 times before it goes on TV. Yeah. And I'm extrovert Gemini, but I got to work on more like, okay, you're like, even tonight, you're like, hey, let's just go on IG Live. And I'm like, yeah, but IG Live doesn't sound great. And I love the way the microphone and headphones sounds. And
yeah,
we're working on that.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
I wanted to ask you too, by the way, since this is kind of like an interview, as if you were on the podcast.
Okay, this will be equivalent to doing the podcast because you interview amazing and creative, inspiring women all over the planet. And
so now we get some insight to you.
Okay,
so back to some of your work experience, because we talk a lot about, like, especially to introverts, is stepping into your power and channeling that inner rock star. But I hear you have a story to share from time in Dallas about stepping into your power.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, as some of you on here know, some of you, like a lot of you, know what I do, but very few people know who I worked with because I hate to talk about that stuff in the industry.
Very modest. It's not a thing to do. I know.
And the industry is kind of frowned upon. It's like, but there is this one very well-known act. They're still very well-known, and at the time they were the top of the line. It was the band's called the Jonas Brothers. Okay, so I'm sure everyone's heard about that.
Well, your kids have.
Yeah, the kids have. I was with a band called Honor Society, and we were the opening act on Jonas Brothers, and we did the whole tour. The very first show that we walked into was the new Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Arlington, and it's 100,000 people at the show. It's the biggest indoor stadium I've ever seen, like walking in and doing, the sound system. The stage was 150 feet long. The tour had like 200 touring staff, 22 buses,
Oh my gosh.
20
Wow.
semis, a jet. I mean, it was like
Big production.
big production. In fact, at the time, the only production bigger than us was U2
Yeah.
doing
Wow.
stadiums. So this was like at the height, the biggest tour to walk in, and I'm mixing for this 100,000 crowd, right?
Yeah.
And up until that time, I've mixed a lot of arenas, did a lot of like well-known tours, but I've never in my life played a venue this size, right? So I walk in, and of course, and this is what we teach in the course too, is that, this fear and this self-doubt and this imposter syndrome that comes in, and it's like, it was overwhelming. I wouldn't
can
say it was full
imagine.
panic attack, but it was pretty close, right?
Close to it.
So we load in, we do our line check and stuff, sound check, and I talked to the guy who is the systems tech who put the whole system together. I mean, this we had they had elevators on the stage, they had turntable, a water curtain, a crane. I mean, it was the biggest production I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
And I walk up to the guy and I'm like, I'm G, I'm mixing this band. He's like, hey, have you done arenas before? I'm like, yeah, I've done arenas. I'm really nervous about this. And he says, you don't have to worry about anything. You just mix so it sounds good here.
Right.
If it sounds good here, don't worry about the 100,000 people everywhere. The system's time aligned, it's all set up and EQ'd and all the technical stuff, right?
Right.
So when we're able to focus on one thing, right? It took all that other stress away.
Right.
So I get to the point where I'm at the show, and anybody who's been to a concert, especially that one, knows as soon as the lights go down, and the stage starts to rumble and I'm live. I'm muting the board, and whatever I do is affecting the show.
Right.
And this is day one of the tour. And anyone who's been out on the road knows that day one is usually the roughest show of the whole tour because you're still putting it together.
Just like kind of fine tuning things, right?
Yeah, this was jumping into the lion's den 100%. Like, I either nail this show or I go home.
Right. Right.
And there's like a 6-month, 9-month tour on the other end. So it's like, and right as I was about to start mixing that self-doubt and that fear just creeped in, and I was like, you know what, get out of my head. I mixed the show. I had fun.
See?
That's the thing. We can take all this pressure that's coming around and everything, and when we block it out, and we're able to focus on one thing, like I tell you with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about talking to all the people, all the women all over the world in all different countries. Talk to one person.
Right.
One person. If you can change one person's life, you've done your job, right? So when I was able to just take away all the noise and focus on, hey, I know the songs. I'm prepared. We talk about that in the course, pre-production, being prepared. And I had fun. And when I was able to have fun, the band on stage was having fun. I know they were scared too because they've never performed in front of 100,000 people at that time. We just looked at it as we have a great message to share. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we all have the skill to do it. We've rehearsed it over and over again for weeks before. We didn't just walk out on stage to 100,000 people and not know what we were doing. But when we were able to block out all that self-doubt and imposter syndrome and just have fun, it was the best show of the tour.
Oh,
and everyone came up and said, man, that was great. And I'm like, I was still shaking afterwards, but I was like moving around and dancing. I was like, this is cool. How often is that going to happen?
Right, exactly.
So this is like for everybody out there who has a podcast, is doing a Facebook Live, doing IG Live, whatever, YouTube, all that. You don't have to worry about how many people are showing up. You don't have to worry about how many viewers or listeners or clients or any of that you're going to have. All you have to do is focus on talking to that one person with your message.
Right.
And then that's how I was able to channel my inner rock star by making these guys on stage look good and sound good. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true as far as like just focusing in on, whether it's just like that one person. But, another thing that I've been finding has really helped me with pulling through and overcoming my fear of public speaking has been, again, thinking about who is the listener? Like, how is my message going to help them? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's my message or if I'm interviewing a guest, like what they're, sharing their expertise, their stories, how that might help that one person out there who really needed to hear that at that particular point in time, like whenever that may be. So I really think it's important to kind of like take a step back and just like, you know, realize what an impact that your
Mm-hmm.
story and your message can have on other people.
Yeah.
And that sort of has pulled me through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what after every episode, I'm like, oh my God, you're the next Oprah. I swear. No, I mean, guys, she's humble too, because she can take meeting somebody one time on a pre-interview that we do, like a 15-20 minute pre-interview that you and the guests do. And that's really the only interaction you have, right?
Yeah.
And then turn around and record an episode. And when you listen to it, and when I'm editing and listening to it, it sounds like they known each other for 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's the
That's
importance of for me, especially as an introvert, to have that time to connect with the person beforehand.
yeah.
It just establishes like that level of comfort. I know in the past you've talked about, you like to describe that as like creating a nest
Yes,
where
the
people
nest.
are like kind of comfortable. And, we'll talk more about that maybe another
Another
time.
time.
But,
I don't know if
that's a
we'll be
whole
on
other,
here for an
that's
hour.
another 20-minute hour discussion. But
It-
it's really creating that
Yeah.
sort of comfort zone
Yeah.
for the guests and establishing a rapport.
Yes.
And I just find, at least for me, that really helps. And plus, I use that also as a chance to decide and decide not just myself, but decide along with the guests. Like, you might know that they might be a coach in this thing or they've written this book, but it gives you a chance to touch base and say, what points should we focus on? It sort of helps shape the interview questions. So I really find, even though for some people it might feel like, oh, that's just such an extra step, I feel it's a really important step. So I talk a lot about that in the, Introverts Guide to Rocking Your podcast, but I don't know. I just feel like that's been something that has really made the podcast evolve into what it is for season 2, which is all about be inspired and step into your power. I really feel that to get that message through, this is really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I think it is a crucial step, because otherwise you go into interviewing somebody that you don't know anything about.
Right.
They don't know anything about you. It's just Q&A.
Yeah, it's like speed dating or something.
It's speed dating, yeah. Oh, what's your favorite color? Blue.
Oh,
Okay,
swipe
well,
left or swipe whatever.
right. Swipe left, swipe right. I don't know. We're too old. We're too old for all this stuff. No, what it does is it creates this very comfortable place, this solid nest,
right,
that they feel comfortable talking to you. You feel comfortable talking to them. On the tech side, they now know our process. We know that the mic and headphones are working, and we record.
Right.
We don't use that in the podcast, but it gives them more confidence,
right,
and time to prepare, because you then send them questions. It's not ever like a script, like word for word, but it's like a outline. It gives them time to prepare. Like, I just put a video up about what we cover in the I cover in the sound check sessions, and it's so true. Getting that message together, so it gives them time to prepare.
Yeah,
because they kind of know the structure of where it's going, what and when they can mention their call to action.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
it gives talk more on that. Like,
yeah, it gives like a sort of a flow. And I like to tell people, the nice thing about the podcast is you're the boss. You decide, like,
it's your show.
I had somebody ask me today who I was doing a pre-interview with, like, so how long is it? And I said, well, the nice thing is since it's our show, we get to decide. And I said,
right.
I aim for around 30 minutes, but if it's under, like, if you can get all your, points across in 15 minutes, that's fine. If it takes half an hour, that's great. And sometimes you get into conversations that might last even longer. That's okay. Like, that's what I love about podcasting. It's so flexible.
And from a producer standpoint, editing, mixing, producing, you want it to sound like a conversation.
Right. Yeah.
When it comes to editing, I go over this in the course. I don't really ever edit anything you guys say.
Right.
I just look for little mic bumps or,
Yeah.
maybe a little, something in the background. Maybe there's a lawnmower going or
Or
something when someone,
the neighbor broke out his
the
chainsaw.
chainsaw pops out every now and then.
The dog is barking.
Joey's barking while the guest is talking and it's picked up on your mic. I can go into Audition
Silence
and
it.
silence it and do that. So that's what editing is to me. But the message that you guys are saying, what you're talking about, it's a conversation. What you hear on the podcast is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like it's Q&A and then let's cut this and cut this out and do this.
No.
And
Yeah.
that's the key, I
Yeah.
think.
Make
Yeah.
it sound natural.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree.
That's why I think it's so impactful. And that's why I think so many people around the world love it, because it sounds like a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just you and this person having a conversation, and the listeners kind of just like, wow, okay, kind of listening in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna spring the surprise on you.
Oh, a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ask all of my, well, not so much of a surprise, because if you listen to all the podcasts I've done, or edited them all and produced them, I wanted to ask you, so what exactly do you can share with others?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to relax and rejuvenate? You're like, what do you mean? Whoever relaxes around here?
Believe it or not,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is just a guy thing, but it's kind of my escape. It might be kind of that superhero complex or something, but I love football.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I
G
love
loves
football.
his football.
American football. I like soccer too, but I mean, when I say football, because we have international, over everywhere else, football is soccer. But I'm talking like American football. I love it.
Uh-huh. Cool. Who's your favorite team?
Tom Brady, of course, Tampa Bay. It was the Patriots for so long. Yeah, I know.
So wherever he goes, you follow.
Pretty much. Well, one thing I'll give, okay, I'm not going to turn this all into football, but one thing you got to respect about the guy, whether you like him or not, he has a system of how he approaches every game. There's certain things he does the same on every game, and there's certain things he does differently. But he looks at it as a job. I'm hired to do a job. I go out there and do it to the best of my ability. And when the game's over, I move on and do the next game. Yeah. And that kind of, I think, is really good advice for entrepreneurs, for other podcasters, for YouTubers and things, is that, every time you go on camera, every time you do a podcast, every time you present your broadcast, right? That's a show.
Right.
So the more shows you do, the better you get at it, just like with the bands.
Right.
Show 1 and show 100 were completely different shows, even though the music was the same.
Yeah, you start out in the dive bar with like 2 people, but
it
could be that one person is like, I don't know.
The Rolling Stones story.
Guy.
Yeah. Right, I shared that. Yeah. I won't say they act because I don't, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But there was a show we were doing in St. Louis, and it was only 10 people in the crowd.
Wow.
And because I will not say the lead singer or the band, but they did go on pretty big, but and the lead singer was like, you know what, let's just cancel the gig. It's like 500-mile drive. At that time we're doing van and trailer drives. It was it's hard, and it's like, let's just drive on. I'm like, no, these people paid, whether one person or 10 people. You get out there, you kick ass, you do your show, right? He went out, did it, kicked ass. It was the best show. They had so much fun. 10 people turned into 20 people.
Right.
That was great, right? 20 people, right? Okay, well, at the end of the show, when I'm packing up front of house and doing all this stuff, this guy walks up to me and goes, hey, man, great band. I'm like, thanks. He goes, I'm a journalist and I'd love to interview the band. And I'm like, okay, we get those all the time.
Right.
And he gives me his card, and he's like, I write for Rolling Stone. And I'm like,
see,
really?
now imagine if they had canceled that gig, right?
He said he purposely would go out to shows where there were low crowds to see if the band was really doing a great job. Are they real, or are they just playing up when they play LA and Vegas and all the big high-end shows? They got their album reviewed in Rolling Stone, and it launched their whole career.
See? Yeah.
20 people.
So if you're like an entrepreneur and you get discouraged if you're going on IG Live, for example, and you only see one person, first of all, speak to that one person.
Yep.
And secondly, you never know who's going to catch it on the replay. So remember that.
Never know. Oprah could be out there watching it. We don't know.
Exactly. I have one more question for you, and then I think we should kind of call
to rejuvenate, spending time with you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks.
I relax with football and rejuvenate with you.
Oh, and then one more question before we wrap things up, because we got to go probably check on Joey. But I wanted to ask who or what inspires you?
Well, you do, of course.
Oh,
Actually, Tom Brady inspires me too. His
uh-huh.
work ethic.
Yeah,
Pretty much anybody who does something that everybody says can't be done,
right,
or that isn't going to work, or whatever, and just does it,
right.
and blocks out all the negative and all the doubt, and just does it.
Yeah,
And it's not really about whether they succeed or not. It's the fact that they're doing something,
yeah,
and that is inspiring. Of course, my mom and dad,
yeah,
my
yeah.
sister and all that stuff. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, just it takes a lot to sit down in front of a mic and share your message.
Yeah, it does, and you have to be
It does.
vulnerable, you know?
It's
There's a certain vulnerability to it.
well, who and what inspires you, my dear? I turned it around. Huh?
Oh
You've never been
my.
asked that question
No,
yet
I
because
don't
you're always the one
usually, yeah,
asking
I'm
it.
always asking. Uh, of course you
Oh, well,
obviously.
thank you.
You
Yeah,
make me
sit right
sound like a
here.
rock star, so of
Yeah,
course. I would have to say for sure my mom.
your mom is
She has
awesome.
got so much drive,
Yeah.
and I would call her a serial entrepreneur because she's had many different successful businesses, and she's very creative. So definitely my mom. She's amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, she has. You got to get her on the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
She's
ask her.
she's coming
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Maybe we
Maybe we'll
could
do a
get her in the studio
podcast.
and do it like this. I don't care. It doesn't have to be 2 tracks and everything. Just you and your mom sitting here talking. That
Yeah.
would be an awesome show.
Yeah.
The listeners need to hear her story because what
Yeah.
she's done is just incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, gee, I'm gonna wrap this up, but I just want to say thanks for coming on here tonight
Yeah,
with
this was
me.
fun.
This is
This is
really
great.
fun.
Well,
Yeah.
we got to tell them why we came on here originally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
what we're doing, what we have
Right,
going
of
on.
course. Yeah, so in case you didn't know,
Yep.
just feel free to check out on the feed or in the stories. We are doing this really amazing thing. So we've got the Introverts Guide to Rocking Your Podcast, and it is on sale now through Tuesday. This is definitely a great investment because it's the lowest
That's
we're
the
gonna
lowest it's ever going
go.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
not only that, but we've got really, really cool bonuses if you sign up by Tuesday. And
Yep.
that is they get 2, not 1, but 2 sound check sessions with you. They're 45 minutes each, right?
Okay, I revert to people to watch the video later on in
Yeah.
the feed where I talk about what the sound check session is, but I'll
Yeah.
just keep it really brief. But basically, we go over know the tech, know your voice, and know your message.
Yeah, and go back to the other
And
video and they can see
and go
more
back
on
to
it.
that video and I go
Yeah.
into more details.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're adding that to
Yeah.
it.
And
I
the
don't know how
other
long that's going to be because I only
Yeah,
have so much
so
time.
right.
But
Well, yeah.
yeah,
If you sign up by Tuesday, you can get it, but
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't know about after that.
yeah.
And the other thing is, I'm really excited about this is, so you may have heard that we launched Ignite the Fire Within audio affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have created downloadable affirmation cards. So
Her artwork is brilliant.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
amazing.
Yeah, so I incorporate artwork because that's part of my self-care routine actually
Yep.
is doing art, so painting and also digital photography and stuff. But in addition to that, this is something brand new which I'm adding, which is the Ignite the Fire Within journal, which I created, and some of my artwork is actually also in there as well. But it's a 30-day journal and it's got prompts for every day, and then each page it almost looks like a little planner, but it's got like morning intentions, evening reflections where you can put your own affirmations, and like a tiny little spot where you can write out like your gratitude list. It's so gorgeous. I love it.
This journal is beautiful. And we got it printed up like in color
Yeah,
and
it's so
everything and
pretty.
bound. And I mean, it's a digital version. So,
Mhm.
but it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you worked on that for a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So all of that is in like
Mm-hmm.
this other little. It's kind of like a mini course, but it's really a bundle of products, right? You get that as bonus, so
Yeah.
it's super super cool.
We're here to help all you introvert or extrovert, but introvert entrepreneurs, step into your power, channel your inner rock star, attract or manifest. We
Yeah.
couldn't ever decide if it was
Yeah,
attract
which
or
word?
manifest because it's both.
Yeah.
Your dream clients. And by taking a certain approach and having the right mindset and having the tech understanding and all that and having a crystal clear message, you no longer have to go out and search for clients. They're going to come to you.
Exactly.
And what's the phrase that the girls said?
It's pretty much turn your podcast into a client machine.
Client machine. I love that. Yeah. Coraline and Chantel.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Designed to scale. Yeah,
designed to scale.
Designed to scale.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's whether it's you as a host and you have your own podcast, but it's also if you're a guest, how you can also shine as a guest and share your message and really pretty much establish yourself as a leader in your niche or your industry. So it's really exciting. I love what we're doing.
It is. We've been working on this for a while. It's gone through different incarnations, and now it's finalized and it's officially like and we're going to add more to it over the next month and stuff too. So it's kind of like there's a whole other world out there that we're discovering and creating and putting into this course. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, G, for
Hey, this was great. I don't know how long we were on because I don't know what time it was when we started. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Take care, everybody. So
again, allthingsrelaxstudios.com. All the usual.
Check it out, and you can find the links and information in the usual place.
And the link in bio and show notes and all that stuff. Okay. See you guys. Bye. Ciao. Bye.